Okay, today we're going to be multiplying polynomials. So we're going to start really basic and we're going to be multiplying two monomials together. So whenever you do this, you're going to go ahead and do numbers to numbers. These numbers are called coefficients. So 7 times 4 is 28. And then you're going to do variables to variables. So we have x cubed times x squared. So we have x cubed, that's 3x's, times x squared, which means we would have x to the fifth. Okay, so what you can see is you could just add those exponents. When you're multiplying variables with the same base, you get to add the exponents. Okay, so that was that one. Then we're going to move on to this one. We have negative 2 times 7. A negative times a positive is a negative, so that's negative 14. And then we have x times x, which is x squared. And then we have y. There's no y here, but we're multiplying, so we're just going to put it right there. So it just has one y because it doesn't have any other y's in the problem. Okay, now this is where things get to be a little bit different. So I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. So I'm going to draw a line right here. The way that I think most students make the least mistakes, which you should be interested in because you don't want to have to make mistakes, is by using the box method. So this is the way the box method works. So because I have a binomial, I'm going to do 3 plus 4x, and I like to do the plus even though it's just a positive for x so that you remember that it's positive. If it was a minus, you would want to put the minus. And then this is 1 plus x here. So that's reminding you that it's a positive x. And then you're just going to fill out the chart. So 3 times 1 is 3. Then you're going to do 3 times x. It's positive, so 3x. Then you're going to do 4x times 1, which is 4x. And 4x times that x, which is 4x squared. Now, if we do circle, square, triangle like we did in the previous lesson, you can see that these two numbers right here have are like terms. So it would be 3 plus 3x plus 4x plus 4x squared. But like I said, these are like terms, and the cool thing about the box method is usually the diagonals are like terms right here. So you would just combine those. And I'm going to put it in descending order by powers of x. So that means whatever the highest power of x is, that's the term that goes first. So x squared is our highest power of x, so it goes 4x squared. And then 3x plus 4x is 7x, and then plus 3. So you have to be really careful. When are you multiplying and when are you adding? So in the box method, I'm multiplying, but then when I write out all the terms, I'm adding them together, and then I get this. Now, the other way that you may have learned this, or you may like, is a distributive property method. When you have a binomial, which means two terms, times another binomial, that's called FOIL, but it's also distributive property. So what you're going to do is 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 3 times x, which is 3x, plus 4x times 1, which is 4x, and then 4 times x, which is 4x squared. And you can see we have the same thing here, and we have there. So this way students tend to make less mistakes, so that's my preferred method, and you'll see me doing it from this point out. But you're more than welcome to use this if this is the method that you're comfortable with. Now, I don't want you to choose the method that you think is going to be less work. It needs to be the method that you're going to do your best with. So sometimes faster methods aren't the best solution for us individually. We have to take ownership and recognize our strengths and our weaknesses as well. Okay, so this next one, you are going to be really, really careful right here. So you are not going to shower that power right there because there is a plus sign. This is a family. They stay together. You can't shower the power. In math, the square means that you have it twice. So you need to write it twice, which means we have the same kind of situation that we have up here. So this absolutely does not equal 4 plus 9x squared. If you do that, you create tons of problems for yourself later on. So always remember, in math, the exponent means repeated multiplication. So it says repeat whatever you have here twice and multiply them together. So I'm just going to do the box method again with this. I'm not going to do it both ways because that's going to get repetitive. If you're strong with that, then you can do it. Otherwise, just keep doing it this way so that you don't make as many mistakes. It really organizes your math. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times positive 3x is 6x. Then we have positive 3x times 2, which is 6x. And 3x times 3x is 9x squared. Then we will see that we have these two terms are exactly the same. So 6x plus 6x is that 12x when you add it together. So if I write it in proper form, which is standard form, I'm going to start with the 9x squared, and then I have that 12x. Those are the only two that could be combined, because those are the only things that are considered like terms. This guy doesn't have anything else with an x squared, so it's by itself, and the constant of 4 is also by itself because there's no other constants. Okay, let's try this one. So we know that this equals repeated multiplication twice. So what we're definitely not going to do is say that this is equivalent to 25 minus 4x squared. Definitely not equal to that, okay? So this is bad math right here. And in fact, every time you do that, I'm going to say that a puppy dies, and you're going to think that's really weird. But yeah, don't just shower that power. Okay, we'll talk about that more in class. You don't really need to know all the little memory tools in the video, but we're going to do this one for this. So 5, oh, we have our first minus. So notice how I put 5 and then minus 2x or negative 2x, and same thing here. Okay, now we're just going to do that multiplication. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times negative 10 is negative 10x. Negative 2x times 5 is negative 10x. Oh look, negative times a negative is a positive, and that's going to be 4x squared. Okay, then we're going to combine our like terms again. You have two negatives, so same sign, add and keep. So same sign, add up those numbers and keep the sign. So it's going to be negative 20x. When I put it in descending order, 4x squared, and I'm just going to make it minus 20x since it's negative 20x, and then that's a positive 25, so plus 25. Okay, alrighty, then we're moving on to the next guy. Oh my gosh, it's a binomial times a trinomial. So there are two different ways to do this one too, and I'll show you both ways one time. So the first way again is the box method, but for this box method you have a 2 by 3, so you need to make the 2 part for your x minus 3, and then the 3 part for your 3 terms. So 7, negative 8x, negative 2x squared. Okay, so now we're just going to multiply. X times 7 is 7x. X times negative 8x is negative 8x squared. X times negative 2x squared is negative 2x cubed, because you'd have 3 x's. Now I'm going down to the negative 3. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. Negative 3 times negative 8x is positive 24x, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And then negative 3 times negative 2x squared is positive 6x squared. So now, it's a little bit backwards, but these two terms are the same. So 7x plus 24x is 31x. And then we also have another set of like terms, and that's because we were multiplying more things. So I'm going to do the square. And we have negative 8x squared and positive 6. different signs, subtract, and keep the sign of the bigger one. So negative 8 and 6. When I subtract 8 and 6, I get 2. I have more negatives, so it's going to be negative 2x squared. So now I can write everything in descending order by powers of x. So it starts with negative 2x cubed. Then it goes to the negative 2x squared, positive 31x, and then the last one is that negative 21. So there's that method. The other method that you can use to multiply these, I call it the clamshell method, but it's distributive property just like before. With this, you're just going to want to make sure to line up your math so that you keep everything in line. So the first time I'm going to do this. So I'm going to do those 3 multiplications. So x times 7 is 7x. X times negative 8x is negative 8x squared. And x times negative 2x is negative 2x cubed. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is start multiplying here. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. And I'm sticking it right here because these are going backwards. So the constant term in this particular problem is actually lined up first. And that's just because these are in reverse order. So you just kind of have to look at your problem. When you write your final answer, it should always be in descending order. Okay, negative 3 times negative 8x is 24x. And I'm trying to line it up with this. My numbers got a little smushed, but the reason why I want to line it up with that is so I can add them together. And then I have negative 3 times negative 2x cubed, which is 6x squared. And then we're just going to make this one whole big math problem. So you're going to add them. So we don't have any other constants. 7 plus 24 is 31x. Negative 8 and positive 6 is negative 2. So negative 2x squared. And then minus 2x cubed, and then we're going to rewrite it by descending order. So we're going to start with the term that has the highest power of x. And as a reminder, that's called the degree. So this is a 3rd degree polynomial because the highest power of x is 3. Okay? Alright, let's move up to letter G and see what we got going on here. So same thing. I'm doing box method for my remaining problems just because box method keeps me super organized and I'm less likely to make a mistake. So it does take me a little bit of time to draw out this box, but I don't mind it because if I make less errors, that's better for me in the long run. So here's all the boxes, and then we just multiply. 2x times 4 is 8x. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 5x squared is negative 10x cubed. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. Negative 1 times x is negative x. And negative 1 times negative 5x is 5x squared. Then I do circle, square, triangle, so I see this 8x and this negative x, that's going to be 7x. And then I see this 2x squared and this 5x squared, and that's going to be 7x squared. So now I can just take straight from the box and put it in order by descending powers. So I have negative 10x cubed, which is from this box. Then I have the combination of these two boxes, which makes 7x squared. The combination of those two boxes, which makes 7x. And then I have my last box, which is a negative 4, and that's my constant term. Okay, so then we pick things up a little bit, but we're totally fine. It's nothing too challenging that we can't help handle. There's 2 x's and there's 3 y's, and then we got some other, so we got x's and y's in this problem, and it just means that we're going to have to be careful when we multiply. So same thing, setting up my box method. You might want to make your boxes just a little bit bigger on this one since you have x's and y's. 2x plus 3y, 4x squared minus 5xy plus 2y squared. So 2x and 4x squared makes 8x cubed. We have all x's, so that's pretty simple. Now we have 2x and negative 5xy. So this is kind of like problem B here, where you have to multiply your coefficients or your numbers in front. So 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Then go to your next variable. X times x is x squared. And then we have a y. So we're just going to tag that y right there. Then we go to our next one. 2 times 2 is 4. This one has an x, this one doesn't, this one has a y, this one doesn't. So it's just going to look like that, 4xy squared. Okay, next one, 3 times 4 is 12, so we have x squared y. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Then we have the x from here and a y times a y from here, which would give me y squared. And then I have 3 times 2, which is 6, and y times y squared, which is y cubed. So let's look for like terms. So just like before, in order for it to be a like term, the variables have to be exactly the same with the same exponents. And again, this is why I like box method. Look at this. Diagonal, they're usually similar. So these two aren't. But these two are, and these two are. Those are both sets of like terms. So negative 10 and 12 makes 2x squared y. And then when I go to do this one, I have 4xy squared and negative 15xy squared, which is a negative 11xy squared. So when I start, this is a little hard because you're like descending order. We still do it by powers of x. So this one has the most powers of x, so it's going to be 8x cubed. Then this one has the next highest power of x, which is 2x squared, y. Then this one, because x is to the first power, so you can see it went cubed, squared, first power, and then this one doesn't have an x that we can see. You could actually put x to the 0 there, so it would go 3, 2, 1, 0, because anything to the 0 power is 1. But mathematicians are lazy, so they're not going to put x to the 0 there, because that's extra writing. That just means 1, and we don't need to write that. Alright, so let's take a look at this second to last problem right here. This is another big one, and now it's just a 3 by 3. So I'm only going to do this the box method. You could do it the other way too if you're comfortable with it, but I just want to caution you, if you start making lots of mistakes, the box method is so easy and so convenient. So x cubed plus 6x squared plus 1. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you put this one here or this one here. Up here, you could have made your rectangle like this if you wanted, and you would still get the same answer. You could have made it like that. So you could have put the 2x and the 3y here, and the 4x squared minus 5xy plus 2y squared here, and we would still get the same answer. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. So it doesn't matter as long as you have all of your terms being used and you multiply properly. Alright, so let's do this one. X cubed times 2x squared is 2x to the 5th, because you would end up with 5 x's being multiplied. X cubed plus 4x is 4x to the 4th. X cubed minus 1 is negative x cubed. So I just took care of multiplying all that. So now I'm going to go to the middle one and do the same thing. So I get 12x to the 4th, and then I get 24x cubed, and then I get negative 6x squared. Okay, last one, 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. So now I'm going to do my circle, square, triangle. So I have this one. You're going to kind of have to figure out where you want to write it. So I'm just going to take it down here, and I have, well, no, I'm not going to take it all the way right there because I have one for that already. I'm going to take it right there. 12 and 4 make 16x to the 4th. You could do that part in your head too if you wanted. Next, oh my goodness, x cubed, 24x cubed, and that's it. So x cubed and 24x cubed makes what? So I'm going to write this one here. That's going to be 23x cubed. Now here's a weird one because they don't line up, but that's okay. We can still see it. You guys see these two? They do not line up, but they're like terms. So I don't know, maybe we'll just put it right here. So we get 2x squared and negative 6x makes negative 4x squared. So always start with your highest power of x, which is this 2x to the 5th. And then we have 16x to the 4th and 23x cubed minus the 4x squared. Oh, then I still have this plus 4x and this minus 1. So that's all right there. All right, last problem. It's a word problem, and I know a lot of times you guys just read these and you're like, oh, I don't want to do it. You don't even actually finish reading it, but I'm pretty sure you're capable of this one. So it says, here's the dimensions for a rectangular prism. We have x plus 4, x plus 5, and x. What is the volume of the prism? Write the answer as a polynomial in standard form. So standard form is like all this right here, that where you multiply it out. This is polynomial in factored form. This is a polynomial in standard form. So let's start with volume. Volume is length times width times height. So we have all three of those. And we're actually going to write it as a function of x. So that just means you're going to write it like that. You can use f of x, but because we're dealing with volume, you can write it like this as well. So that means x times x plus 4 times x plus 5. So you have lots of choices because in math it doesn't matter when you multiply the order in which you multiply. So like for example, if you have 2 times 3 times 4 and you decide to do 2 times 3, which is 6, and then multiply it by 4, and that's 24, it would give you the same thing though if instead of doing 2 times 3 first, what if you did 3 times 4 first? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, and then times 2 is 24. So the order in which you multiply or add in math doesn't matter. Dividing and subtracting, it definitely matters, but the adding and multiplying, it doesn't matter. So what I prefer to do is I prefer to multiply this piece together first. So I do x plus 4, well, x plus 4 and x plus 5. So that gives me x squared, 5x, 4x, and 20. So all of this multiplies to x squared plus 9x plus 20. So I did that math first, and then I'm going to distribute that x to everything. So that would give me x cubed plus 9x squared plus 20x. And that's the area in standard form. I want to make one quick little note before you finish.